my sincerity.
U.S. President Donald Trump starts formal talks with China's President Xi Jinping on Thursday, and tells his counterpart that he believes there is a solution to the Pyongyang problem. U.S. President Donald Trump takes part in a welcoming ceremony with China's President Xi Jinping in Beijing, China, November 9, 2017. Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump told Chinese President Xi Jinping on Thursday that he believes, like Xi, that there is a solution to the North Korea issue. It was too bad that past U.S. administrations let trade get out of kilter, but we will make it fair to both sides, Trump also told Xi as they begun formal talks at Beijing's Great Hall of the People. Chinese and U.S. companies signed deals both sides say are worth $9 billion during Trump's visit. China rolled out the red carpet for Trump, treating him to an elaborate welcome ceremony on the plaza outside the Great Hall of the People before the leaders turned to their private talks. Trump looked on approvingly as a Chinese honor guard played the national anthems of both countries, cannons boomed and soldiers marched. He clapped and smiled as children waving U.S. and Chinese flags and flowers screamed and jumped wildly. But thorny issues await Trump and Xi behind closed doors, including potential tensions over trade and China's willingness to put the squeeze on North Korea over its nuclear weapons program. Before arriving, Trump delivered a stern message to Beijing, using an address to the National Assembly in South Korea to call on nations to confront the North. All responsible nations must join forces to isolate the brutal regime of North Korea, Trump said. You cannot support, you cannot supply, you cannot accept. He called on every nation, including China and Russia, to fully implement UN Security Council resolutions against North Korea, enforcing sanctions aimed at depriving its government of revenue for its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Looking forward to a full day of meetings with President Xi and our delegations tomorrow. Thank you for the beautiful welcome, China at FLOTUS Melania, and I will never forget it. pic.twitter.com/Skowiggeek Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump. November 8, 2017. The latest measure, adopted after a September atomic test explosion, the North's largest yet, banned imports of its textiles and prohibited new work permits for overseas North Korean laborers. It also restricted exports of some petroleum products. Trump's words drew a caustic response from North Korean state media, which issued a statement on Wednesday saying the U.S. should oust the lunatic old man from power and withdraw its hostile policy toward Pyongyang in order to get rid of the abyss of doom. White House officials said Trump would underscore his public messages about North Korea when he and Xi sit down for private talks on Thursday. China is North Korea's largest trading partner, and Trump is expected to demand that the nation curtail its dealings with Pyongyang and expel North Korean workers from its borders. Trump has praised China for taking some steps against Pyongyang, but he wants them to do more. China is increasingly disenchanted with North Korea over its nuclear weapons development, but remains wary of using its full economic leverage over its traditional ally. It fears triggering a collapse of the North's totalitarian regime that could cause an influx of refugees into northeastern China and culminate in a user-led unified Korea on its border. U.S. President Donald Trump arrives for a welcoming ceremony with China's President Xi Jinping in Beijing, China, November 9, 2017. Reuters. The President and First Lady of the United States spent the first hours of their visit on a private tour of the Forbidden City, Beijing's ancient imperial palace. It's usually teeming with tourists but was closed to the public for the presidential visit. The Trumps walked alongside Xi and his wife through the historic site and admired artifacts from centuries past. Trump posed for photos and, with a wave of his hand, joked to Xi about the reporters watching. And he laughed and clapped along during an outdoor opera featuring colorful costumes, martial arts and atonal music. U.S. First Lady Melania Trump and China's First Lady Peng Liyuan watch as U.S. President Donald Trump takes part in a welcoming ceremony with China's President Xi Jinping in Beijing, China, November 9, 2017. Photo. Reuters. Trump said afterward he's having a great time in China. But much of the remainder of his stay in Beijing will revolve around deep negotiations over trade with Pyongyang and other matters. Among business deals signed by both sides, a pledge by China's biggest online retailer to buy $1.2 billion of American beef and pork. Such contract signings are a fixture of visits by foreign leaders to China and are aimed at blunting criticism of Beijing's trade practices. It's a way of distracting from the fact that there's been no progress in China on structural reform. Market access are the big issues that the president has tried to make progress on with regard to China, said Elizabeth Economy, the director for Asia Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Trump has made narrowing the multi-billion-dollar U.S. trade deficit with China a priority for his administration. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said Wednesday the deals were a step in the right direction. Achieving fair and reciprocal treatment for the companies is a shared objective, Ross said. Today's signings are a good example of how we can productively build up our bilateral trade. China's trade surplus with the United States in October widened by 12.2% from a year earlier, to $26.6 billion, according to Chinese customs data released Wednesday. The total surplus with the United States for the first 10 months of the year rose to $223 billion. Source: World and agencies.